Relationships. Relationships are kind of hard, but they're kind of fun. So I think if you're on this video, you're probably wondering how to keep a relationship and how to have more bliss in a relationship. I think I have some authority to talk about this. I have been with my husband for 18 years, and I also had another 10-year relationship through my 20s. So let's dive in. I want to give you guys 6 steps and talking about having a blissful relationship in the Great Awakening. And that is the key here. When we are in an awakening, an ascension process, relationships can get a little tricky and they look a little different than they do in 3D land. Relationships. We are diving deep with relationships today so we can vibe high in our relationships. We're going to remember this together. The thing is about relationships in 3D land is that there's a lot of emotional, mental stuff going on, right? There's a lot of hooks and there's a lot of karma, and it's kind of like a soap opera, really. I remember that in my earlier relationship in my teens and 20s. So what's different? What shifts when we go into a relationship during this Great Awakening, when we're in an awakening process? Well, what shifts is that we have a broader perspective. We have a broader perspective about our belief systems about relationships, about our emotions and what they really are. And we kind of have a vibrational perspective when we are awakening. So things start to really shift and we go up. There's different things that you need to be aware of when you go into a relationship during your awakening process. Because what you see in the movies and in romance novels and stuff is still working in a 3D reality. And they don't really talk about how it shifts. And so we could be like longing for this romance and stuff like that. And you can totally have it. However, you need to know these 6 steps. So the first thing is choice. Choose it. Okay, so what kind of relationship do you want? You know, is it a romantic, loving relationship? Is it a equal partnership? Is it a long distance relationship? You really can have whatever relationship you want, and it can look any way you want. It doesn't have to look typical. You could be married and live across the country from each other. Yeah, you can create whatever you want. That's what's so cool about awakening, is that we start to see that we don't have to live by the forms and structures anymore that 3D land is telling us to live by, or that we have to. All right, so number 1, really get clear on what you really want to choose, okay? Do you want a long-term relationship, long-distance relationship, loving relationship, romantic relationship? What do you want? And then from there, really feel what it would feel like to have that, okay? Number 2 is allowance. Allowance for the ups and downs. Guys, the Great Awakening, as you know, is full of personal growth and expansion, raising your vibration, dipping back down. It's really quite a journey. So you may want to find someone that's willing to do those ups and downs with you. And this allowance is key. Key. Because your partner is going to go through ups and downs too. They're going to raise their vibration, they're going to pummel, they're going to explore, if you pick someone who is on the awakening journey too. So allowance is key for when they are in that space of in the chrysalis and they're having a hard time, or when each of you is going through ascension symptoms, right? And you don't feel well. My husband is so good at this. Whenever I'm going through ascension symptoms and I'm down for the count for like 1 to 3 days and I can't move out of bed, he just holds the space for me. He just really is an allowance of my process. That really is key, guys. So allowance for yourself in the relationship and how you are being, and an allowance for them. So number 3 is space. What I mean by space is in this relationship of the Great Awakening, um, you are two pillars standing alone. You're not like enmeshed. Okay, so it is key for a relationship to sustain itself in the Great Awakening and in your awakening process that you each are willing to take space. So you have your own practices, you meditate, you go off on sabbatical, you go on trips on your own, you hike alone, you do things separately and you process separately. Now, how many in an old paradigm, how many, in the psychological ring of relationships, how many times do they say you have to process, you have to talk things out? I have noticed that that is not beneficial to a blissful relationship in the Great Awakening. So you are the creator of your relationship. You are the creator of your reality. So you are the processor of it. So yes, you can go and chat about how you process things, but honestly, I really recommend taking space alone to be like, why am I getting triggered by this? What's going on? Like, how does it get better than this? How am I having this perspective about them? It's not about them, it's about you. And so it's really important to take it to your meditation mat, take it to the woods, and go internal about it and say, what are you doing and knowing to actually create out there of what your partner is doing? So if you guys get in a fight, go off separately, process it on your own first, and then you can kind of talk about your ahas. And by all means, it's important too to like say certain things like, this is on my heart, like you need to know this. But which brings me to number 4, which is focus. Where is your focus? Okay. Now, in the High Vibe Tribe, I talk a lot about being 100% committed to the lightness. So this is where I try to have my focus in my life onto my lightness. But sometimes I dip, we all do. So even if we are 5D beings, even if we're 12th dimensional beings, like we may dip down into 5D. So 5D beings might dip down into 3D and we come back up. It's just a vibrational shift. But what are we holding? So where are you focusing? Are you focusing on the lightness of your partner and the lightness of yourself? Or are you focusing on something denser? Right? Are you focusing on a problem? Are you focusing what they're not showing up as? Are you focusing on, a little quirk they have? Most likely it's stemming from something you're vibrating, and it could be something in your subconscious that's active and you're not aware of yet that it's active. So that's where that taking space, asking what is vibrationally active here, that I am projecting it vibrationally out to my partner and they're acting it back to me. So where do you want to focus? Do you want to focus on their lightness or their flaws? And I gotta check in with this all the time. 18 years with someone. It's there's a lot to look at. There's a lot of experience. There's a lot of day to day together. And my husband and I both work from home. So we are always in the same house, in the same space. We have our own offices and space. So we take a lot of space. So before I leave this, focus, what's really helpful and has helped me through the years is this practice called the Rampage of Appreciation. This is brilliant and it can change things. It's kind of along the lines of writing gratitude statements. But the Rampage of Appreciation is you just get a notebook, maybe it's your partner or your marriage notebook, and you just write all the things you appreciate. You appreciate about them, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, everything, creatively. Just write everything down. Now, in This is especially helpful in those hard disconnected times. And in those hard disconnected times, it might be hard to start the Rampage of Appreciation. So my suggestion is start with something that's always there. My husband has just really pretty eyes. Okay. And he's just always got my back. So, you know, you start there. You start with the ones that never seem to change, right? My husband has great arms. He has a tattoo right here. Physically, I love his arms and his tattoo. So, you know, that's always a given that never changes for me. I always love that. I appreciate that. And so start there, and then you can keep writing it out. So write a whole page. And so that will help you kind of raise your vibration around your perspective of your relationship. All right, now let's go to number 5, your awareness. What are you aware of in your relationship? So as you grow your awareness, you're going to become aware of what they're processing. You're going to become aware of their personal evolution. And it's really hard to not say something. But honestly, the person you're with, it's really important that they have their aha moments, that they come to their knowing on their own. And it's kind of like this, each of you on this awakening journey, like you'll grow awareness and he'll grow awareness, and it kind of goes like this. One thing that's really important is to not be their therapist, not be their energy mentor unless they're asking for input. I've learned this the hard ways because my awareness skyrocketed at one point, and it was just like I could just see so much of the density in the subconscious that was still active. And he was working on uncovering it. So it wasn't mine to tell him, but I was so agitated by the frequency of it. So this is where step number 2 comes in again. We got to grow that allowance. And, you know, as we grow our awareness, we're going to be seeing a lot more, and it can be a rub. Okay. So go, you know, in a time where you're seeing more and they're in a little bit of a plateau and they're going to jump to the awareness soon. Take more space, right? Do things on your own. It's super important in relationships in the Great Awakening that you feel really whole and complete in yourself, and you have self-love for you. And that, you know, when your partner's having a good time or a hard time, that you step away, okay? And it's okay if they're going through a tough vibration. It's not really yours to fix. And again, I've learned this the hard way. But if you're having a hard time because your vibration's here and theirs is there, you're just like, you know what, I'm going to step away. I'm going to go hike with my friends. I'm going to go do whatever. And then you come back and stay in your high vibe, and there's an entrainment process. So whoever's vibing higher, if they can sustain their higher vibration, then the one that's vibing a little lower and having a little bit of a dip, they can start to entrain to you. Now, a lot of times what we do is entrain to the lower vibing person. And so it really does take some choice and real focus to keep our vibration high so that your partner and your whole household can entrain to the higher vibration, whoever that is at the time, and that will shift. Okay. All right. So destroy and uncreate. This is probably the most important thing here. Number 6 is destroy and uncreate. So what you probably notice in past relationships that are more 3D-ish, there's a lot of cleaning up the past. There's a lot of events that didn't go well that come into the present moment that have to be processed and relived and activated and triggered by. So this is so important. The past can sabotage your present relationship and your bliss in your relationship. So every night before bed, destroy and uncreate your relationship with your partner. Super, 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 super important. So the way to do that, all you say is, I destroy and uncreate my marriage and my relationship with my husband. And I know that sounds kind of intense, but what you're doing is saying, I'm clearing and cutting that, and I'm starting fresh, a new day, which brings us back to number one, choosing it. So every day when you wake up, you're going to choose your relationship or your marriage. Okay? At nighttime, you're going to destroy and uncreate it. And then come daytime, you're going to choose it again. So many times in long relationships, we forget to keep choosing it. And we're kind of like, oh, I'm done with this. Oh, like there's so many past energies you may not be aware of that are just feeling like, oh, I have to do this again, or oh my gosh, here comes this issue again. Destroy and uncreate the relationship. And if I swear, if you do this every night, you're gonna blossom into a new, fresh relationship each day. All right. So, yeah, these are the 6 things. And that is a pretty quick overview of all of these. And what I might do is take 1 or 2 of these and expand on them for more relationship videos, because it's a really potent topic, and there's a lot to say about relationships in general, but relationships in the Great Awakening is different than relationships in 3D land. So look for more relationship videos from me to come to you in the future here. So beautiful people, how is your relationship right now? Are you about to embark on one? Do you want to create one? Do you have a very long-term one that you're working with? Let me know in the comments. What is your biggest relationship challenge? I'd love to know. I'd love to know so I can speak more about that, and we can learn together. Remember, we're here remembering our greatness together. Have a wonderful day and a blissful time in your relationship today. Namaste.